I want you to think about how much a stranger can find out about you just by watching. Your schedule, your car, your route home. I never thought about it either, until I had to. I'm 23, and this happened about 8 months ago. I work nights, I've lived alone for 3 years, and I've always felt pretty comfortable being independent. That changed for a while last year, and I still think about it more than I'd like to. I work as a server at a sports bar near my apartment. Decent money, regular hours, nothing special. One night in early spring, a guy came in by himself and sat at the bar. He was polite, tipped well, and we ended up talking for a bit because it was slow and he was one of maybe 3 customers in the whole place. He mentioned he worked nearby, some kind of IT job, and that he just moved to the area a few months back and didn't really know anyone yet. Honestly, I felt a little bad for him. He seemed lonely more than anything. I gave him my usual customer service friendliness, nothing more. And when he left, he said he'd probably be back since the food was good. He came back about 4 days later. Same seat at the bar, same polite demeanor. This time he asked if I had Instagram, said it would be cool to follow a local business since he was new to the area and trying to find good spots. I didn't think much of it. I gave him my account, which is just my first name and last initial, pretty generic. He followed me that night. For about 2 weeks, everything was completely normal. He'd come in once or twice a week, always polite, always a good tipper, and he'd occasionally like a post or two on Instagram. Nothing that raised any flags. If anything, I thought he was just a nice regular. Then, one night he came in and sat at the bar like usual, but something felt different. He asked me what time I usually got off work. I told him, just making conversation, not thinking twice. He asked if I walked to my car alone. I said yes, it's only like 30 feet from the door to the lot. He said that wasn't very safe and that he didn't like the idea of that. I remember laughing it off at the time. I said something like, "I've been doing it for years, I'll be fine." He didn't push it, paid his tab and left. About 20 minutes after he left, I checked my phone during a break and saw he'd sent me a DM. It said, "Be careful walking to your car tonight. There's been some sketchy people around lately." I didn't think it was threatening exactly, more just odd. I thanked him and didn't think much else of it. When I got off work that night around 11, I walked to my car like always. As I got close, I noticed something on my windshield, a piece of paper, folded once, tucked under the wiper. I unfolded it in my car under the dome light. It was a handwritten note. It said, "Made it safe. Good. See you soon." That was it. No signature. My stomach dropped immediately. I hadn't told him what kind of car I drove. I hadn't told him where I parked. I sat there in my car for a solid 5 minutes just staring at the note, trying to figure out how he could have known which car was mine in a lot with maybe 20 other cars. I drove home, checked my locks twice, and barely slept. The next morning I told my roommate everything. She thought it was creepy too, but she pointed out he hadn't really threatened me directly. "Made it safe, see you soon" could almost be read as a weird, overly friendly customer thing. I wanted to believe that. I really did. For the next few days, he didn't come into the bar. No messages either. I started to relax a little, thinking maybe it really was just a one-off weird moment and he'd moved on or felt embarrassed. Then I posted a story on Instagram. Nothing special, just a photo from a hike I'd gone on with some friends on my day off, tagged with the trail name. Within an hour, he'd commented on it. The comment said, "Looks like a great trail, I might have to check it out sometime." That was when the anxiety really kicked back in. It wasn't anything he said exactly. It was the pattern. He was watching everything I posted, and he was making sure I knew he was watching. I took my account private that night and removed him as a follower. Within an hour of doing that, I got a follow request from a new account. Different username, but the profile picture was a photo of the same hiking trail I'd posted. I didn't accept it. I blocked it. Another one came an hour later, then another the next morning. I stopped posting anything for about a week. I told my manager at work what was going on, just in case he showed up again. My manager said if he came in, they'd keep an eye on things, but legally, there wasn't much they could do unless he did something more overt. I understood that, but it didn't make me feel any better. About a week and a half after the note on my windshield, I was leaving work at my usual time. It was raining lightly, and the parking lot lights were dimmer than usual, like one of the bulbs had gone out. I walked to my car quickly, head down against the rain, and got in. I locked the doors immediately, which had become a habit at that point. As I started backing out of my spot, my headlights swept across the far end of the lot near the dumpsters. There was someone standing there. Just standing, not moving, hood up, facing my direction. I froze for a second, then just drove. I didn't look back in my mirror until I was already on the main road. When I did look, there was nothing behind me. No headlights, no car pulling out after me, just an empty road. I called my roommate on the drive home, staying on the phone with her until I pulled into our apartment complex and got inside. She suggested I call the police just to file something, even if nothing had technically happened yet. I did. The officer took my information, said they'd note it, and recommended I get a dash cam if I didn't have one. I bought one the next day. 2 days later, I worked another night shift. Nothing unusual happened during the shift. No customer matching his description came in. I started to think maybe the report had scared him off, or maybe he just moved on to whatever was next for him. When I got to my car after that shift, everything looked normal. I got in, started the engine, and the dash cam light came on like it always did. I pulled out of the lot and started driving home, which takes about 12 minutes. About halfway home, I glanced at my rearview mirror out of habit and saw headlights behind me. Not unusual on its own, but they'd been behind me since I pulled out of the lot, and they stayed exactly the same distance back the entire time, through every turn I made, including a turn that doesn't lead anywhere except deeper into a residential neighborhood that isn't on the way to anywhere else. I made that turn specifically to test it. If they were just someone else driving home, they wouldn't follow me down a dead-end residential street with no through road. They did. My heart was pounding. I didn't stop. I didn't pull into my apartment complex either because I didn't want him to see exactly where I lived if he somehow didn't already know. I kept driving, made another turn, then another, doubling back toward the main road. The headlights stayed behind me the entire time. Eventually, I pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour pharmacy that was still open, lights blazing, a couple of cars parked outside. I parked right near the entrance under the brightest light I could find and just sat there, watching my mirrors. The car behind me slowed down at the entrance to the pharmacy lot, sat there for maybe 3 seconds, then drove past and continued down the road. I couldn't make out the driver. It was a dark-colored sedan, but I couldn't tell you the make or model to save my life. My hands were shaking too badly to even think about getting my phone out to record anything. I sat in that parking lot for almost 20 minutes before I felt okay enough to drive home. When I got home, I reviewed the dash cam footage with my roommate. We could see the headlights the entire drive, exactly as I'd described, but the footage wasn't clear enough to read a plate or identify the car definitively. I called the police again the next day and gave them the dash cam footage along with everything else. This time, because I had something more concrete, an officer actually came to the bar to talk to my manager and look at the security camera footage from the parking lot, both from the night of the note and from recent shifts. That's when things took a turn I wasn't expecting. The security footage from the night of the note showed someone walking through the lot around the time I clocked out. But it wasn't the man from the bar. It was someone else entirely. Different build, different clothing. The bar's cameras were grainy, but it was clearly not the same person who'd been sitting at my bar all those nights. The officer asked if I'd had any other interactions with anyone else recently, anyone who might have access to my information or schedule. And that's when I remembered something I'd completely dismissed weeks earlier. About a month before any of this started, I'd had a guy come in to fix the bar's point-of-sale system, the tablets we use to ring in orders. He was there for almost 2 full days, working on all of our systems, including the scheduling software we use, which shows employee names, shift times, and in some cases, basic contact information for emergency purposes. I never thought about him again after that. He was just a tech guy doing his job. But the timeline lined up almost exactly with when all of this started. The police looked into the company that had sent him out for the repair. It took almost 2 weeks, but they eventually identified him through the work order records. When they went to question him, they found something on his personal laptop. Photos, dozens of them, all taken from a distance. All of me, going back almost 2 months, walking to my car, inside the bar through the windows, at the grocery store near my apartment, even one taken from what looked like the dead-end street I'd driven down that night, time-stamped almost exactly when I would have passed through. He'd accessed our scheduling system during the repair and pulled my information, including my work schedule and the make and model of my car from an old parking permit form we'd filled out for the bar's lot months earlier. The note on my windshield, the new Instagram accounts following the same hiking trail I'd posted, all of it traced back to him. The guy who'd actually been coming into the bar and sitting at my section, the one I'd originally suspected, had nothing to do with any of it. He really was just a lonely regular, and when the police eventually spoke to him as part of the investigation, he was horrified to learn what had been happening. The tech guy was charged with stalking and unlawful surveillance. I had to give a statement, and there's an ongoing case, though I'm told these things can take a long time to resolve fully. What gets me most, even now, is how close I came to never finding out. If the dash cam hadn't caught those headlights, if I hadn't made that turn down the dead-end street just to test a theory, I don't know how long it would have gone on, or what it would have eventually led to. I changed jobs about a month after everything came out. I still live in the same apartment, but I park under the light closest to the building now, every single time, no matter how inconvenient it is. I think about that note on my windshield a lot. Made it safe. Good. See you soon. At the time, I thought it was strange but harmless. Now I know it was neither.